The afternoon sun hung low over the small neighborhood, its golden light casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalks. Jake, a 13-year-old boy with tousled hair and worn sneakers, kicked a pebble down the street as he made his way home from school. His backpack, frayed at the edges, bounced with each step. The quiet hum of everyday life surrounded him, but something unusual caught his attention. Across the street, an older man was struggling to pull a thick, coiled cable out of a truck bed. His face was red with effort, and his movements were slow and labored. Jake paused, watching for a moment. The man's hands trembled as he tried to tug the cable onto the ground. "Hey, mister," Jake called out, stepping closer. "Need some help?" The man looked up, startled. His weathered face softened into a smile. "Well, I'll be. You've got good eyes, kid. I could sure use an extra set of hands." Jake dropped his backpack on the ground and approached the truck. "What is this thing for?" he asked, grabbing hold of the cable. It was heavier than it looked, but Jake braced his legs and pulled with all his strength. "It's for an electrical installation," the man explained, stepping aside to guide the cable's descent. "Got to wire up a whole building by the end of the week. Name's Walters, by the way." "I'm Jake," he replied, grunting as they moved the cable together. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he didn't stop. "Why don't you have someone helping you?" Mr. Walters chuckled, his voice warm but tinged with exhaustion. "Budget cuts. They think one old man can do the work of three. But I'm managing. And now I've got a strong young man like you lending a hand." They worked together for the next 20 minutes, dragging the cable across the gravel lot toward the construction site. Mr. Walters occasionally paused to share tidbits about his work, weaving stories of projects from his younger days. Jake listened intently, captivated by the man's resilience and humor. "You know, kid," Mr. Walters said as they finally set the last coil into place, "it's rare to see someone your age step up and help without being asked. Most folks just walk on by." Jake shrugged, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Didn't seem right to just watch you struggle." Mr. Walters smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Well, you've got a good heart. Don't ever lose that. Kindness has a way of coming back to you, even when you least expect it." Jake felt a warm glow in his chest. "Thanks, Mr. Walters. I'm glad I could help." As Jake grabbed his backpack and prepared to leave, Mr. Walters called out, "Wait a second." He rummaged through his toolbox and pulled out a small, shiny coin. "Here. A little token of appreciation." Jake hesitated, then accepted it with a shy smile. "Thanks. But you didn't have to." "I know," Mr. Walters said, his tone kind but firm. "But you've earned it." As Jake walked home, he turned the coin over in his hand. It was an old silver dollar, its surface smooth from years of wear. He slipped it into his pocket, feeling a sense of pride that outweighed the ache in his muscles. When he reached his house, his mother was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed. "What took you so long?" she asked, her tone a mix of worry and annoyance. "I was helping someone," Jake replied, dropping his backpack by the door. His mother's expression softened. "You and that big heart of yours. Just don't forget about your own responsibilities, okay?" "I won't," Jake promised. But as he climbed the stairs to his room, he couldn't help but wonder if his small act of kindness had made a difference. What he didn't realize was that his gesture had set something in motion, something far beyond what he could imagine. And it would all begin the very next day, when a black car pulled up in front of his house. The morning sun streamed through the curtains of Jake's modest bedroom as he stirred awake. The silver dollar from Mr. Walters sat on his nightstand, its metallic gleam catching the light. Jake picked it up, turning it over in his fingers. The words of the old worker echoed in his mind. "Kindness has a way of coming back to you." He slipped the coin into his pocket and headed downstairs, where the familiar aroma of eggs and toast greeted him. His mother was bustling around the kitchen, her expression preoccupied. "Morning, Mom," Jake said, grabbing a slice of toast. "Morning, sweetie. Did you finish your homework last night?" she asked, casting him a quick glance. Jake hesitated. I got distracted. But I'll finish it after school. Before his mother could reply, the sound of a car engine idling outside drew their attention. Jake's mother moved to the window, her brow furrowing as she peeked through the curtains. "What in the world?" she muttered. Jake joined her, his eyes widening at the sight of a sleek black car parked at the curb. It was spotless, with tinted windows that hid whoever was inside. The neighbors were beginning to notice, peering out of their own windows or stepping onto their porches to get a better look. "Is it someone you know?" Jake asked. His mother shook her head. "No idea. But it's definitely not the kind of car you see around here." As they watched, the driver's door opened, and a man in a sharp suit stepped out. He adjusted his tie and scanned the houses, his eyes settling on theirs. Without hesitation, he walked up the pathway and knocked on the door. Jake's mother hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. "Stay behind me, Jake," she said firmly, before opening the door a crack. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone cautious. The man smiled politely. "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Mr. Carter. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Walters. May I come in? I have something important to discuss with you and your son." Jake's mother glanced back at him, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. After a moment's hesitation, she opened the door wider and motioned for Mr. Carter to step inside. Seated at the kitchen table, Mr. Carter placed a sleek black briefcase on the surface. Jake and his mother sat across from him, the tension in the room palpable. "I'll get straight to the point," Mr. Carter began, his voice calm and measured. "Yesterday, Jake helped Mr. Walters with a task that most people wouldn't have bothered with. It was a small act of kindness, but it didn't go unnoticed." Jake's mother frowned. "What does that have to do with you? Mr. Walters is more than just a worker," Mr. Carter explained. "He's a part of an organization that values individuals who demonstrate exceptional character, especially at a young age. Jake's actions caught the attention of our leadership, and we believe he has potential." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Potential for what?" Mr. Carter's smile widened slightly. "For opportunities that could change your life. But first, we want to help. Inside this envelope," he said, sliding a crisp white envelope across the table, "is a scholarship offer for Jake to attend one of the best schools in the state. Additionally, there's financial assistance to support your family." Jake's mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. This can't be real. "Why would you do this for us?" "Because we believe in rewarding good deeds," Mr. Carter said simply. Jake's willingness to help, without expecting anything in return, is exactly the kind of quality we want to nurture. Jake stared at the envelope, his mind racing. It all felt surreal, like a dream he'd wake up from at any moment. "Take your time to decide," Mr. Carter added, standing up and straightening his suit. "But know this, opportunities like this don't come around often. We hope you'll accept." As he left, the black car pulling away from the curb, Jake and his mother sat in stunned silence. The envelope lay untouched on the table, its contents holding the promise of a future they never imagined possible. But with it came questions, doubts, and the weight of an unexpected choice. The envelope sat untouched on the kitchen table, its pristine surface a stark contrast to the faded wood beneath it. Jake stared at it as if it might explode, the weight of its contents pressing down on him even though he hadn't opened it yet. His mother paced the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "This doesn't feel right," she muttered, more to herself than to Jake. "Nobody just shows up and hands out scholarships and money like this. What's the catch?" "Maybe there isn't one," Jake offered hesitantly. "Mr. Walters seemed like a good guy. And Mr. Carter said they just want to help." His mother stopped pacing and turned to him, her eyes filled with worry. "Jake, things like this don't happen to people like us. What if they want something in return? Something we can't give?" Jake didn't know how to answer. He'd spent the night replaying Mr. Carter's words in his head, trying to make sense of it all. The promise of a scholarship and financial assistance felt like a miracle, but miracles didn't come without strings attached, did they? Should we at least look at what's inside? Jake suggested, his voice tentative. His mother sighed and sat down across from him. All right. Let's see what this is all about. With trembling hands, she picked up the envelope and carefully opened it. Inside were several documents, neatly typed and official-looking. She scanned the pages, her eyes widening as she read. It's a full scholarship, she whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. Covers tuition, books, even transportation. And she flipped to another page. They're offering us a monthly stipend to help with expenses. Jake's heart raced. That's amazing. Isn't it? His mother looked up at him, her expression torn between hope and fear. It sounds too good to be true. Why would they do this? Just because you helped some man with a cable? Maybe it's because they see something in me, Jake said quietly. Maybe they think I'm worth it. His mother's eyes softened, and she reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Of course, you're worth it, Jake. You're the best thing in my life. I don't want to see you get hurt. That evening, they called a family meeting. Jake's uncle and grandmother joined them in the cramped living room, their faces serious as his mother explained the situation. The envelope lay open on the coffee table, its contents spread out for everyone to see. It's a lot of money, his uncle said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. But your mom's right, Jake. It's strange. No one gives this kind of help without wanting something back. What if it's legit? Jake argued. What if this is my chance to do something great? To help us get out of this place? His grandmother, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Sometimes blessings come in unexpected ways, she said softly. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be cautious. Jake, if you decide to take this opportunity, promise me you'll keep your eyes open. Pay attention to everything. Jake nodded, his resolve strengthening. I will, Grandma. I promise. The next morning, Jake and his mother sat down together to fill out the paperwork. The forms were straightforward, asking for basic information about Jake's background and aspirations. As he wrote, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. This was a leap into the unknown, but it was a leap he was willing to take. They mailed the documents later that day, and as they walked back home, Jake couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a looming shadow. It felt like a door, cracked open just enough to let the light in. That night, as Jake lay in bed, he thought about Mr. Walters and Mr. Carter, about the black car and the silver dollar still resting on his nightstand. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't going to let fear hold him back. What he didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The choices he made now would set the stage for a journey far greater than he could imagine. The black car arrived again 2 weeks later, this time to take Jake to his new school. Dressed in a freshly ironed uniform, a gift from Mr. Carter, Jake stood nervously at the curb, clutching his backpack. His mother gave him a tight hug, her eyes shimmering with both pride and worry. Remember what Grandma said, she whispered. Keep your eyes open, and trust your instincts. Jake nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. As the car pulled away, he watched his mother fade into the distance, his chest tightening with both excitement and fear. The school was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The towering building gleamed in the morning sun, its glass facade reflecting the manicured lawns and pristine sports fields. Inside, the halls buzzed with students, their polished shoes clicking against marble floors. Jake felt small and out of place, his scuffed sneakers and second-hand backpack a stark contrast to the designer labels and sleek leather briefcases around him. You must be Jake, a friendly voice said, pulling him from his thoughts. He turned to see a woman in her 30s, her kind smile putting him slightly at ease. I'm Mrs. Hathaway, the guidance counselor. Let's get you settled in. She led him through the maze-like corridors, pointing out classrooms, the library, and the cafeteria. Your scholarship covers everything, she explained. Books, supplies, even lunch. If you need anything, just come find me. Jake nodded, mumbling a quiet, "Thank you." His first class was math, a subject he usually enjoyed. But as he walked in, the room fell silent, and all eyes turned to him. Jake's stomach churned. He took a seat near the back, hoping to blend in, but the whispers started almost immediately. Is he on a scholarship? Look at his shoes. Definitely not from here. Jake stared at his notebook, willing the teacher to start the lesson. When she finally did, he focused intently, taking notes and avoiding eye contact with his classmates. Lunchtime wasn't much better. Jake sat alone at the edge of the cafeteria, picking at his food. He tried to tune out the chatter around him, but it was impossible to ignore the occasional glance in his direction. Hey, new kid! Jake looked up to see a tall boy with perfectly combed hair and a smug grin. I'm Daniel, the boy said, sliding into the seat across from him. You're the scholarship kid, right? Jake nodded cautiously. Yeah. I'm Jake. Daniel's grin widened. Welcome to our school. Hope you can keep up. They don't make it easy for outsiders here. Before Jake could respond, Daniel stood and walked away, leaving Jake feeling even more out of place. The days passed in a blur of classes and whispered judgments. But Jake refused to let the isolation get to him. He threw himself into his studies, staying late in the library to review material and catch up on the advanced curriculum. He found solace in the quiet halls after school, where he could focus without the weight of judgment pressing down on him. One evening, as he worked on a particularly challenging science assignment, a voice interrupted him. That's a tough one. Need help? Jake looked up to see a girl about his age, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore the same uniform but had an air of casual confidence that set her apart from the others. Aye, sure, Jake said, surprised. She pulled up a chair and scanned his notebook. You've got the right idea, but you're overcomplicating it. Here, try this. She explained the problem clearly, and Jake felt a flicker of relief as the pieces clicked into place. Thanks, he said, smiling for the first time in days. I'm Jake. Emma, she replied, extending a hand. Don't let Daniel and his crew get to you. They're all talk. Jake's smile widened. I'll try. With Emma's friendship and his determination to prove himself, Jake began to find his footing. He excelled in his classes, earning the respect of some teachers and even a few classmates. But the lingering whispers and Daniel's subtle jabs reminded him that he still had a long way to go. One evening, as Jake packed up his books, he found a folded note tucked inside his locker. The handwriting was neat and precise. Keep going. You're stronger than you think. Jake stared at the note, his heart pounding. Who had left it? And why? The mystery sent a shiver down his spine, but it also filled him with a quiet determination. Whoever believed in him, he wasn't going to let them down. Jake's routine at his new school was finally settling into a rhythm. Between classes, late-night study sessions, and his growing friendship with Emma, he felt a sense of progress, even if acceptance among his peers still seemed far off. But the note left in his locker lingered in his mind, a constant reminder that someone was watching his journey, and rooting for him. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling math test, Jake was called to the guidance counselor's office. The request was unexpected, and as he walked the quiet hallway, his nerves buzzed. Mrs. Hathaway greeted him with her usual warm smile but quickly introduced another figure in the room, Mr. Carter. Hello again, Jake, Mr. Carter said, standing to shake his hand. You've been doing well. Very well, in fact. Jake's brow furrowed. Thank you, sir. But why are you here? Mr. Carter gestured for Jake to sit. I wanted to check in personally. The organization that provided your scholarship has been closely following your progress. And we're impressed. Jake shifted in his chair, unsure how to respond. I'm just trying my best. Your best is exactly what we hoped for, Mr. Carter said with a nod. But I'm not just here to offer praise. There's something else I need to discuss with you. Something important. Jake's heart raced. What is it? Mr. Carter leaned forward, his expression serious. The scholarship you received isn't just about academic excellence. It's part of a larger initiative, one designed to identify individuals with the potential to create meaningful change. We see that potential in you, Jake. Jake blinked, stunned. Meaningful change? I don't understand. You will, Mr. Carter said, handing him a sealed envelope. Inside are details about a special program we'd like you to participate in. It's an opportunity to work alongside others like yourself, young people with the drive and determination to make a difference. The program will challenge you, but it will also prepare you for a future beyond anything you've imagined. Jake stared at the envelope, his mind swirling with questions. Why me? I'm just a kid who helped someone pull a cable. Mr. Carter's smile returned, soft but confident. Sometimes, the smallest actions reveal the greatest character. You stepped up when no one else did. That speaks volumes about who you are, and who you can become. That evening, Jake sat at the kitchen table, the envelope unopened in front of him. His mother and grandmother sat nearby, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. Are you going to open it? His mother asked gently. Jake nodded, breaking the seal and unfolding the letter inside. His eyes scanned the page, each word sinking in like a weight on his chest. It's a mentorship program, he explained. They want me to attend workshops and training sessions with other kids from across the country. They think I have potential. His grandmother's eyes sparkled with pride. You do, Jake. You always have. This is your chance to show the world what you're capable of. His mother, however, looked hesitant. It sounds incredible, but it's a lot. Are you sure you're ready for something like this? Jake thought about the struggles he'd faced, the whispers in the hallways, and the note in his locker. He thought about Emma's encouragement, and the lessons he'd learned from Mr. Walters. Slowly, he nodded. I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted. But I want to try. I want to see what I'm capable of. The next week, Jake found himself on a bus headed for the program's orientation. The countryside blurred past the window, and his thoughts were a whirlwind of excitement and fear. When the bus finally arrived at the sprawling campus, Jake's breath caught in his throat. The facility was modern and imposing, buzzing with activity as other students arrived. A woman in a navy blazer greeted him at the entrance. Welcome, Jake. We've been expecting you. As he stepped inside, Jake felt the weight of the opportunity before him. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he was determined to face them head-on. For the first time, he believed Mr. Carter's words. He had the potential to make a difference. And this was only the beginning. The orientation for the mentorship program was an intense whirlwind of introductions, workshops, and challenges. Jake quickly realized that every student there was extraordinary in some way. They came from diverse backgrounds but shared a common thread. They had all been chosen for their potential to lead and inspire. On the second day, Jake found himself in a sleek conference room filled with rows of young faces. At the front stood a man who exuded calm authority. His tailored suit and confident stance commanded attention, but his warm smile put the room at ease. Welcome, he began. My name is Mr. Reynolds, and I oversee this program. Each of you has been selected because someone saw something exceptional in you. But potential means nothing without action. Over the next few weeks, you'll be challenged to think bigger, work harder, and dream further than ever before. Jake felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was a responsibility. He wasn't here by chance, and he wasn't going to let anyone down. The first major task came a few days later. Each student was assigned a team and given a project: identify a real-world problem and propose a creative solution. Jake's team included Maya, a tech-savvy girl with a knack for coding, Ethan, a quiet but brilliant strategist, and Sophia, a charismatic leader who quickly took charge. Their project focused on sustainable energy solutions for underserved communities, inspired by Jake's experience with Mr. Walters. He shared his idea for an affordable, portable generator, and the team rallied around it, brainstorming ways to enhance the design and make it scalable. This is more than just a project, Jake told them during one late-night brainstorming session. It's a chance to help people who really need it. His passion was contagious, and the team worked tirelessly, combining their skills to create a comprehensive proposal. By the end of the week, they had a working prototype and a polished presentation. The day of the presentations arrived, and Jake's nerves were palpable. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as each team took the stage. When it was their turn, Jake stood at the podium, his hands gripping the edges. He glanced at his teammates, who nodded encouragingly. "Good afternoon," Jake began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. "Our project addresses the challenge of providing sustainable energy to communities that lack access to reliable power. This portable generator is affordable, efficient, and easy to deploy. But more than that, it's a symbol of hope for families striving for a better future." As he spoke, a wave of confidence washed over him. He knew this wasn't just about impressing the judges. It was about making a real difference. The presentation concluded with applause that felt like validation for their hard work. That evening, during the closing ceremony, the top projects were announced. Jake's team won second place, and while they didn't take the top spot, the recognition was enough to spark something inside him, a sense of purpose. After the ceremony, Mr. Reynolds approached Jake. "Your presentation was exceptional," he said. "But what stood out most was your passion. You have the heart of a leader, Jake. Don't lose that." Jake nodded, his chest swelling with pride. "Thank you, sir. I won't." When Jake returned home, he brought more than just a certificate and new friendships. He carried a vision for the future. Over the next few months, he worked tirelessly to refine the generator, reaching out to mentors from the program and even enlisting Mr. Walters for his expertise. Word spread about Jake's project, and soon, local organizations began offering support. With their help, Jake launched a pilot program to distribute the generators to families in need. Seeing the impact firsthand was more rewarding than any trophy. One evening, as Jake packed up after a community event, he noticed a familiar figure approaching. It was Mr. Carter, his expression as unreadable as ever. "I'm proud of you, Jake," he said. "But this is just the beginning. There's more work to be done, and more lives to change. Are you ready?" Jake straightened, his determination unwavering. "I'm ready." As Mr. Carter walked away, Jake felt a sense of clarity he'd never known before. He wasn't just a boy who helped with a cable anymore. He was part of something bigger, a movement to make the world better, one step at a time.